Hi there and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to paint some really sweet little roses that I have in my garden. They have orange tips, they're yellow in the center, and they are tiny but they're very beautiful. I don't have a drawing here. I'm going to be as spontaneous as I can because I think that when you're spontaneous you get a very fresh painting. However, if you do want a very detailed drawing then, or a painting, I would say that you should sketch it out first. So here we go. I started out following the lines of the petals, and I'm keeping a very close eye on how they move, which way they turn, and being very careful about the amount of paint I put on, and just going with the flow. It's very important to try and follow the shape, especially outside of the petal, because that's what makes it look more realistic. Don't get too stiff and start thinking that everything has to be round, because in life, on the rose, it's just not that way. Here I'm adding a little bit more of the darker yellow to give a little bit more change in color and depth. Now I'm starting on the second rose, and the petal on the other one is fairly dry, so I can go ahead. They are touching but they're not blending in together very much, which is sort of what I wanted. I've also made it darker, and that creates a little bit of difference between the two roses. And I'm continuing the same way I did on the other side, bearing in mind to stay loose. If there's too much paint, to take off a little bit. Do this all while it's wet. Here I'm putting in the center of the rose before I start doing the petals, because this one I want to be a little bit more dominant, and then continue to place the petals around the center. And you can draw the paint into the center. Usually find that waiting for the center to dry, and then you can put your paint in between. If you do it lightly, you don't destroy the center that you've just created. As you can see there, that's a fairly good way to place your paint, is to draw your outer line with a little bit heavier paint, add some water, and then draw that paint down towards the bottom of the petal. And here I'm doing it the opposite direction, where I'm doing the center part first and then adding the darker outer edge and letting it sort of melt into the yellow. So here we're coming to the last petal, and already we've established 2 roses that I think look very pretty, and all we have to do now is add some leaves. So once again, I am sort of following the leaf that I see in the photograph, and I'm being very loose about it, but also quite precise actually when I place my paint down, just working freely. I'm going to put a little bud here. I'm trying to stick to what I see in the photograph, because as soon as you start putting your imagination in, which is fine too, if that's what the type of art you want to do, there is a tendency to start putting in things that aren't there and may not look quite as good or as realistic. So that's why I like to follow a photograph or the real thing, because that way you can have some guidelines and your imagination doesn't run away with you. So right now I'm just concentrating on getting the leaves in the right places, not worrying too much about shadow and depth just yet, although the amount of paint you put on one side of the leaf can make the leaf look like it has some variance, which is a good thing. But it's important to get our leaves in the right places first. So as you can see, we have a nice balance here with the leaves, and I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. I'm just going to, now that that rose is dry, I'm going to add a little bit more to the center with a slightly darker yellow. It's got a little bit of burnt umber mixed in with it, and that brings the rose a little bit more alive. So here I'm starting to add a little bit of darker paint, tiny bit of Payne's grey mixed in with the sap green to create a little bit more depth to the stems. I recommend using a much smaller brush for this so that you have less paint and less chance of making a mistake, making your stem too wide. And also start out with a little bit of paint and gradually add more if you need more, because you can also overdo it and spoil the shape of the leaf if you put too much. Of course, here I'm darkening anywhere where I think it needs to be a little darker, usually at the bottom of the leaf, or at the tip if it's turning down or away from the light. And I've kept this rose painting quite light, and I've kept quite a bit of space around it because that's what I wanted to achieve with this painting. Of course, in real life you're going to have a whole bunch more leaves in the background, which would be much darker, and the light ones would stay on top and you would see more contrast. But for this painting, I wanted to have it nice and light. Here I'm going even darker still, and I'm going to add 1 or 2 veins here and there on the leaves. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you wish to purchase this pretty little orange rose painting, it'll fit into an 8x10 frame, and it's $45 Canadian as a very special price. You can DM me on my Instagram, Surface Design MJ. I really hope that you can stop in and see my website, artlikethat.com, and surfacedesignbymaryjane.com. And I really appreciate you watching my channel, and I hope you come back to see the next video. While I take you out in my garden, I'll say goodbye.